Hello, it is me. Hey, everybody. My name is Caleb. I am your DM in the House of Shenanigans, World of Fun and Jesting. Tonight with me, I have three of our players. We got Clyde, Matt, and Jim. I'll give you guys a brief second to tell me who you are and maybe a little bit about what you look like. And then we'll get into what you've been doing after we get through all of those. So we will start with Jim.
Hey, I'm Jim. I'm playing Critter. I'm just a tabaxi. I'm wearing skin tight leathers, and I've got big puffy fur for a head out from the leathers, and from my hands, big puffy balls, and from my feet, I got big puffy balls, and I got a tail that sticks out of my leathers, and it's a big puffy tail.
Clyde.
Hello, I'm Clyde. I am playing Gardain, a hill dwarf, fiery red hair, and plate armor.
Nice. Matt. Might be muted there, Matt.
Oh, yes, I am. I am playing a shifter druid by the name of Cajun. He has, I guess, sort of feline-ish features. Mostly brown, fluffy hair, except for his left arm, which is more like a gorilla's, black and hefty. I carry with me a staff, and something new is that on the staff, tied to it with twine and grass cane, is what looks to be a flower of some description, but it's been petrified. It's solid as stone, and it's just hanging off my quarterstaff. And no one's seen that before. It has a very, very low silvery glow. It only illuminates out to about 5 feet, and it's very dim, but it has this faint silvery glow. And yeah, I'm always communing with nature, and especially with the animals.
Nice. So I think we're gonna actually run with that. At where the current timeline sits, you guys have been back at the Heroes Guild just outside of West Rock for a little over 2 months now. But what I want to do first is I'd like to go back to the town of the farming town of Horizon, and just after Gardain, Ulthane, Critter, and Catman Dude all took off to go investigate the cave and the vines, and essentially look into the situation that Larna Ott asked for. Craig actually approached Cajun and asked him if there might be some help that he could give. And Cajun, what happens is Craig kind of walks with you back out to Grickland's farm. And there you can see, maybe now that it's been a couple of days for the first time, a lot of the area where the tracks that you guys found initially outside of his farmland, and a lot of the grass around the mounds where these onkegs were moving through the earth, the grass has started to die. The worked land, the dirt is becoming sand, and anything that is attempted to be buried in these areas just aren't growing. And Grickland is kind of in charge of the rest of the staff, and they're going about their business. But he takes a break once he sees you and Craig standing there, and Craig's kind of pointing these things out to you. And Grickland comes over, and he says, "Oi, you ever seen anything like this?"
Cajun investigates the ground, and I'm wondering whether he has or not. I'm guessing this is fairly new to him.
I mean, that's definitely up to you.
He says, "Me, I have not seen anything like this, but I've heard back in the old guild where I came from, there was a druid there. He talked to me of his accomplishments, and one of his stories that he used to tell around the fire was of a very fertile piece of land that turned bad. And so I haven't seen it personally, but I've heard a tale like this. I don't remember quite how it goes, it was so long ago. But it's my understanding that he was able to fix it.
He was. That was my question. It seems like whatever those things were, they brought with them a blight of some kind. And wherever they trod all across, not just here, in the neighboring farms and further away, wherever they went, seems like they carried death with them. That seems a little dramatic, I know. But in a place where your entire livelihood is based on how well the food grows, if this isn't fixed or changed, it very well may mean the end of a place like this. And he kind of extends his arms out, gesturing towards his farm and off the other direction to, farms that kind of extend out, just hundreds and hundreds of yards or meters. And he says, I know that it's not official business, and he looks to Craig, and Craig kind of gives him, an understanding nod. But well, and Craig cuts in, says, I don't think he knows how to say it, but I know what people like you can do, Cajun, and I was just hoping that perhaps you might be able to find some way to make this better, because from the looks of it, I mean, there's nothing that I'm going to be able to do to make this situation better for these people, but I thought maybe either you do somebody or something that might be able to help, I was just reaching but I was hoping maybe there'd be something to do. I could show you around to some of the other areas if you wanted to see more of it, but most of it, and he kind of points at the ground where those strawberries initially would have been planted, and the dirt, as he kind of points at it and withdraws and pulls away and looks back to you, your eyes still down there, it the wind picks up and kind of blows across it, and as it does, you see the little bits of dirt kind of pull away as if the last remaining bits of moisture that would have been in it is gone, and this dirt dust is kind of grinding into sand before your eyes.
Asian will, as he's done many times, kneel down onto the ground and press his ear against the earth. He'll stay there for a little while, just listening to the heart of the land, and then he'll stand and he'll say, "There is something odd." He says, "Wherever you roam, where there is fertile land, there is worms who eat their way through the earth, who poop out goodness into the soil. But I hear no worms." He says, "Perhaps there is something I can do. I don't know. I've never done something on this scale before. My connection with the land is something that comes from inside of me, something I can't even explain. The shaman who taught me these druidic ways only had a passing connection with the druid circle. And though I have it, I don't understand it. Perhaps I could tap into their power. It'll be the first time that I try."
And Craig kind of takes a step back from you, kind of giving you space, and he, kind of reaches off to the side and says, kind of gives the motion to, "Hey, step back, Ricklin," so that you have plenty of space. And then they're both at this point, they're giving you as much space as you feel like you need. They're just trying to stay out of your way because they don't really have any solutions, and you're kind of the last ditch effort here before they try and find something more serious, you guess.
What's the weather like?
Overcast. Rolling in from the south, moving from the south to the north.
So Cajun will he'll gather some underbrush and make like a seat of it, and sit down in the twigs and leaves and grasses that are still remaining. There's not much left, but he gathers what there is, and he sits amongst it, and he lays his staff on the ground and unwinds this petrified flower and sits it in front of him. And being unwound from the staff, sort of just lies on the ground awkwardly. he makes a little bit of a nest of the twigs and stands it up, props it up with those. And then he begins to hum as he looks up into the sky and towards these overcast clouds. And he's trying for the first time in his life to send his thoughts to this druid circle that he's heard about, but that he hasn't really connected with before. And he's trying to concentrate. And as he's concentrating, his features flow. And he starts to shift the heads of, or the features of different animals start replacing themselves over his features. First it is Cajun, and then the snout grows and it's more of a wolf. And then a mane grows and it's more like a lion. All these different forms as he's humming and concentrating. As he does the front, the advancing front of the weather moves at just a slightly increased pace in the air. And the taste of the rain is in the air. It hasn't started yet, but the front's getting closer so that you can taste it.
Is Cajun's eye, or are Cajun's eyes open or closed?
I think that they would be closed.
So abruptly, you can start to smell this, and you know that the storm front is coming, and then you hear this loud bang, like lightning, thunder, and your eyes pop open. And what you see around you is you are standing in the middle of this field. Horizon is not there. Craig is not there. Grickland is not there. You see yourself in the middle of this downpour as it moves across the field and comes towards you. The rain in sheets eventually until it crosses over you, and now you stand in the middle of this rain as the tall grass, none of it ever tinted, just sways with the wind, and you hear a trumpet, doo-doo, and you turn to look, and as you turn and look, all you can see coming through the grass is this enormous back of this beast who stands up and begins running, and he almost looks like you, but some of the features are far too feral. Some of where the muscle sinews are tighter, and it's not wearing clothes. You just see it, and it takes 4 massive steps, and it runs right past you. And then another one you didn't even know was there runs right past you. And then you see this hail of these flaming arrows shoot, coming from the same direction that these creatures were coming from. And they launch and they fly over your head. And as you carry over and you watch them, they land in the field behind you, and you just hear yelps of pain. And then you hear this thundering. And you can see just in a great broad line, almost stopped right in front of you, you see this man-like creature striding atop a white horse like you've never seen before. The mane seems wispy. The tail, the hair that should be flat, braided, combed, is wispy, almost like smoke, almost like smog, fog. It's unnatural. But atop it rides a rider with a helmet which covers any features from inside this helmet. All you see is darkness, but the helmet is just beautiful and ornate. It has these enormous wings that pan back. The helmet itself is made of this beautiful material that you don't think you've ever seen anything. That even in the overcast and rain, it still seems to sparkle, still seems to shine. And he turns his head to the side and he shouts out an order in a language you don't understand. He turns to the other side and shouts out an order, and he holds his hand up over his head, and as he does, a light begins to appear in the palm of his hand. And then, boom, you hear another crash, and you open your eyes, and you're standing in the field. The smell of rain is coming. Grickland and Craig nearby as you stand just outside of the town of Horizon where you were before.
I'll just breathe in, breathe out. This ragged, heaving breath. Look up to the sky and see vision before me, even when it's gone. Wondering what it means, who they are, but still concentrating, trying to break through to this druid circle that I've heard about. And I'll spit into my hand and rub it in my fingers and thrust up to the sky. And as I do, the rain clouds gather and form. And just as the water droplets of the spittle spray out from my fingertips, so the water very slowly, just as single droplets, forms in the sky and begins to spit.
And the clouds amorphously are kind of pulling apart and getting back together and seem to be moving in on itself. And eventually the clouds create what almost looks like a circle. And the darkness that a cloud has when it rains seems to stretch out to 8 specific points around this circle, creating high concentrations of this darkness where rain falls from at 8 different points. And you see them light in an odd pattern, and you hear in your head what can be done.
Kijun is a little bit shocked to hear the voices. He didn't know whether he would be able to reach them or not. He takes a second, and then he says, "The life of this land has turned to dust. The green has turned to brown. The soil has turned to sand. And the people's hearts of hope have turned to despair. I am but a single being. I have no power here. But I have heard of the circle. I was told of your care for the land. I would see this land healed. I would see the worms return to the soil. The beetles walk. The plants grow. But I know not how.
And the lights, which this whole time have just kind of been flickering in an odd pattern that just as you think maybe you recognize a pattern, it changes and it's completely different. And then they all stop. And then at once they blink. And you hear the word, or you hear the phrase, pull them out.
Pull them out.
And your hands, as you're sitting here with them over your head, start to be surrounded by this glowing light. And down by your feet in front of you on this dirt, dust, sand, dead grass, ruined field, the area in front of you is glowing the same way. Pull them out.
I guess not fully understanding exactly what the voices mean. Cajun would try to plunge his hands into the dirt.
And as your hands move down towards the dirt itself, everything, as soon as the green light from your hands touches the green light on the ground, the dirt moves aside without you actually physically touching them. And you clench your fists like you were going to grab something. And as you do this strength, and you don't see it, but above this ring, this cloud, all of the dark lights again quickly begin blinking. And then it all dissipates into just one giant rolling cloud, and it rolls over the top of you. And as you look up to kind of be like, okay, now what? You see that it's all gone, and you wrench straight up. And as you do, straight out of the ground from in front of you, you pull almost as if you had the top of a tree. You pull out a tree from the ground that looks like what a mighty oak tree would look like, but it is only as tall as you. But you have pulled it straight out of the ground. And as you do, this green light that was around your hands kind of pulses for a moment, and then it all runs to the tree, and those 8 pieces on this tree begin to blink at you.
At this point, Cajun's fur is almost completely blackened. The ape-like hand on the left of his side, the black fur is spread over his head and down the other arm and down his torso. And the muscles have rippled, almost just like spreading from that one place all across his whole body as he rips this tree out. And he looks almost completely different now, but the visage of his features is still there underneath the black fur. And he looks at this tree that he's pulled out And he turns to the sky and he says, I don't understand.
The tree in front of you shakes, trembles, and as it does, you just see what looks like just these droplets, of these hard little nuggets dropping all around the tree itself. And as soon as they hit the ground, they bounce, but it's not normal. They bounce a great deal of distance away. Some of them bounce way far out of your sight. Some of them bounce right past you, almost like they're going into town, and they bounce in all directions. And a couple do land nearby. Two specifically land near a patch of strawberries that you first investigated. And they hit in the dirt, and the sand underneath this little nugget, this little seed, begins to turn back into dirt. The sand wields away and gives way back as the moisture comes back into it, and it becomes more like dirt. And then you see sitting on top of it just a tiny little seed that has that same aura that you've had on your hands.
On occasion, hears this rush of words flowing like a river, like a waterfall in his mind, just rushing. Just words rushing over his mind. He breathes out. And he speaks the words, and he doesn't know what he's saying. But some foreign tongue has caught his mouth and is forcing him to use syllables that he's never used before and sounds, mouth shapes that he's never used before. His whole face is contorted. And as he speaks, the seed that's there starts to bulge just very slightly and start to grow.
And all around Horizon, all of the people who had farms or witnessed this or saw it land by their feet see the same thing. They see these seeds, some plunge into the earth that had been made right again, and then vines begin to come out, or perhaps a bush grows rapidly in front of them. Others are able to see the what looks like the heads of vegetation finally begin to grow in places that look like it would be desolate. And the tree that you first pulled stops shaking. And it falls apart and kind of shreds down, almost like it wasn't a real tree at all. And as all of the tree trunk quarters and the bark falls and the branches and the leaves, as soon as they hit the ground, they disappear. And what you see in between is the little petrified flower glowing brightly in that nest of brush. And then you look around and everywhere, the places where these seeds were, the plants are growing very rapidly. The ground, the earth seems to be healed. And you don't even have to put your ear to the ground. You hear them. They're back. The worms are back.
The words that were flowing out of Cajun's mouth stop all of a sudden, and the blackness of Cajun's fur that was spreading across him just suddenly retreats, just back into his left hand, sweating, heaving. Breathes raggedly. He opens his eyes and he sees for the first time what's happening, and it sends him backwards, just onto his ass. Just he falls down, and he just looks and he shakes his head, and he sees the petrified flower glowing, and he reaches out for it, but it's like it burns him. He recoils and he sees the silvery, this silvery essence just flowing out and settling itself among the little nest. And then the flower starts to bloom. Even though it's stone, it's just the leaves curl outwards, the buds rise up, twirl, and he can feel it calling to him. He can hear it. And he kneels down, he brings his face close to it, looking, staring, trying to understand. And then he just suddenly feels thirsty, like he's never felt before. Like he hasn't drunk in weeks. And reflexively he tries to sip at the cool droplets of air, the rain. But the liquid doesn't come from there, it comes from the buds of this flower. And he sucks it in, flower pressing to his mouth. And then he pulls it away and looks at it and looks around. Suddenly the clamor in his mind is starting to fade away, and the clouds above, they're starting to dissipate. The circle in the sky, the 8 points that were glowing are starting to fade. The water is now coming from his eyes. He's in shock. The tears come down, spraying the flower. And it starts to close once again. And he slumps down, his shoulders bent over, exhausted, fatigued, like he's been working 7 days straight. Day in and day out.
You feel.
And he just looks up. Sorry, go ahead.
All I was going to say is as you kind of collapse or crumble down to the ground, you feel somebody keep you from falling all the way over. And you look over your shoulder, and it's Craig, and he's got this look on his face like, oh, holy shit. And you turn and look the other way, and Grickland is just like stunned, frozen, like looking around. Like you sit there and you look at him for a minute, and he doesn't move. His eyes don't move side to side. You don't even see him take a breath. He's just frozen. And Craig kind of gets you back to where you're seated again, and he pulls a water skin from his side and kind of sets it down next to you, and he runs over to Grickland, who again is this big orc of a man. Well, orc of an orc. And Craig jumps up on his shoulders and kind of like grabs him, and he's wraps his legs around his back, and he's sitting there on him, just kind of being a little Craig. And as he does, you see it kind of shakes Grickland out of it, and he's like, oh my God. What? And he walks over to where the strawberries used to be planted, and he reaches down into the dirt, and the dirt doesn't run through his fingers like sand. He stays there, and he rubs it in. He rubs it on both hands, and big clumps of it, and he puts it on his face, and he pulls his hands away, and dirt clods fall, and now you can see, and you see somebody running from the town out towards you, and you can hear him calling out to Grickland, Grickland, and you hear all the Grickland. Everybody kind of the chorus of people calling forth, and the man gets there, and he's dressed in these ragged clothes, not ragged, farmer's clothes, well worn, and he says, Grickland, it's better. There were these seeds that came flying into my farm, and where they pulled out the trees, the roots and all, where it was just a sand pit. It's back. It's all better. Grickland, you did it. And Craig hops off of Grickland's back, and he just kind of stares at him side-eyed, and Grickland still like turns to him, and his face is still covered in this dirt, and he says, no, he says, and without even looking, he just extends his brawny arm towards you and says, no, it was him. It was that. And you see now, as you turn and look, he's pointing at you, but not right at like your face. He's pointing like at your torso, and you look down, and in your hand, you're holding the flower, once more petrified and closed, with just little glints of this light shining barely through some of the petals.
And Cajun will hold it aloft and say, the circle of druids is no lie. I don't even believe it myself. I do not have this power, he says. But they do.
And we hold the flower in your hand. The other farmer, you see him, and he kind of drops down, kind of staggered a little bit, down to a knee, and he just looks up at it, and he whispers the words, "The weeping belladonna." So it's been a couple of weeks since you have, well, let's see, it's been about 6 weeks, Critter, since you guys have been back. And we're going to pick up, you've been doing a little training session with the triplets. And what's going on here is there are these series of, from all directions, these juts, these darts being shot in your direction. And essentially what this is a defensive drill. You are working at deflection or avoidance. And what it is, it starts out, this specific drill that you're running is, you start on one side of the drill yard. You're supposed to get to the other side of the drill yard, touch the line, and then come back. So give me an idea of what's Critter look like right now.
Critter is, for the most part, looking pretty much like what you remember him as, in his tight leathers with his puffy feet, tail, and paws, and his head. But oddly, he has a large, what was it? He has a large falchion on his back, a large curved blade, and as he's running through these, through this test and this training exercise, trying to oddly, you see him continue as he's moving through it. He's repositioning it, trying to find a better way to have it sit on his back, and just seems odd for him.
Yeah, and the drill yard is, as everybody would be aware, the drill yard is about 50 feet wide and about 100 feet long. It is a big sand pit, so that's meant to try and attempt to slow your movement a little bit as you move across. But these, you see the three triplets on the far end, and every once in a while they are just kind of putting their hands up over and over, left and right, left and right, left and right, left and right, and every one of them is doing it, but they don't always shoot something out of their hands. But that is the purpose. They're doing this, and all three of them are doing it at different rhythms to try and make the person running the drill have quick reaction time. And again, the purpose is to get to the far end, touch the line, and run back. And Critter, as you're, getting this thing situated, the bell rings and the drill starts, and right away, ting, 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 you get hit by like 4 of these darts that just, some of them ricochet, but a couple of them catch you pretty well. What are you doing?
Well, I'm gonna immediately start to roll, and it's very cumbersome and ugly as I'd go to hit the ground and roll on my rear, but with the way that the falchion hangs and sits on my back, it hits and causes me to roll awkwardly, and then as I try to get up, he flops. He gets stuck in the sand, shooting up sand and slowing me down, and I get up and I'm trying to run, going as quick as I can, and that's not very fast.
once again, you see, as you often have in the past when you run these drills, Rosalind sits with her feet dangling over the side, arms over the middle bar, kind of watching. And out of the corner of your eye, for some reason, you kind of catch her and you see her for just a moment and look back to what you're doing. Um, she's got this look on her face, looking at you like she's confused.
And I'm struggling. And yeah, you said it was how far? 100 feet?
It's 100 feet across.
Cool. And I assume I'm moving at like half speed right now, right?
Right.
Okay. After the first 20 feet, getting up, pushing, and pushed forward another 20 feet, I'm struggling and noticing that she's looking at me and scrutinizing me. Part of me goes, "No, you cannot judge me. I am fast. I am fast." And I call forth my excuse me, my feline agility, and I'm able to book it 80 feet. So I'm able to touch that line. Yeah, and I come back another 40 feet. Oh, yes. No, about another 20 feet, sorry. So I'm 80 feet from finishing.
Yeah, and as soon as you make this decision, you see them, and you just complete where they're aiming and shooting. You completely, every shot lands behind you as you're blurring past all of this, and you go and you touch it. And as soon as you touch the wall on the far end, the way you're going now, all three of them pop up and they start shooting again. And when you get to the point, that end of that movement, you hear ting, 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 and you get hit again.
From being hit this time, I go to roll while pulling the falchion off my back, land, make a decent roll on my rear, tail pushing me back up, and I'm running. And this time, hand on the hilt, other hand on the back side of the flat of the blade, running, trying to block with this and moving throughout the way, trying to stop these darts as I continue to push forward, only able to go another 40 feet. Muted.
You hear them up against the side of the blade, ting, 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 and you're kind of moving it, and one of them, as you're standing holding your arms like this, you see another one hit here, but ricochet off the side of your armor. But as you put your head down like this, another one comes up and it catches your exposed elbow, which pulls the sword down. And three of these blunt-edged darts hit you right in the face.
Not having experienced this, not being ready, not really knowing that normally I don't have to worry about dodging. Normally I don't have to worry about being defensive. I can just run away. I can just move around. I can reposition. It's hard for most anyone to catch me, especially off guard. And getting hit in the face, surprise enough, it knocks me over, feet up in the air.
You get hit 6 more times where you're at. Doom, 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 doom. And then you hear a burr, and the triplets stop. And essentially you ran out of time. You did not succeed. And Rosalind, your eyes drift up. And Rosalind is getting up and kind of pushing off and heading away. But she's 3 stories up and out of sight before you can get to your feet.
And I'm still on the ground with my falchion off beside me, out of my arm's reach, just that laying there, looking up, thinking, "What's wrong with me?"
So a little while later, you get up. You're still dressed, and you're walking through the drill yard towards the locker room, essentially, where you can change into normal clothes. And while you're in there, you see Sorrow, and he looks at you, and you just saw Rosalind, but now here's Sorrow, and he sees you, and he says, "How did it go?"
Are you teasing me? You were there, you watched. And I'm bandaging my hand.
And he kind of cocks his head to the side, and again, Sorrow is this mechanized body with exposed gears and a completely featureless face. You always see him around the Tinker when you do see him. All he's ever had are just circles for eyes that blink when he talks, but the Tinker has added eyebrows to allow him to convey more human-like gestures. And he cocks his head to the side, and his eyebrows purse up, inside up, outside down. And he says, "I know how you fared. That was not the question." And he stands up, and he starts to walk past you towards the drill yard. And he looks down while you're wrapping your hand. And he doesn't even look at your face. He looks at your hand, and he says, "How did it go?" And he just walks out to the drill yard. And now you sit alone in the locker room.
Don't know. Don't know how it left.
Then you hear the door open from the other side that leads into the rest of the stockade. And a figure in an all-black robe walks over to you. He's a page. And he extends out a sealed letter and holds it out to you. And as soon as you take it, he bows, turns, and walks away.
I just set it down beside me on the bench. Tape. Rip. Finish taping it up.
As you're sitting there kind of, working it out and making sure that it's comfortable in your hand, the door opens again, and another, but different, black robe figure walks in, and he holds out a letter.
I've already got one.
And he doesn't say anything. You specifically, because you have been one, you know that if this was a resummons, if you tell them that you already have one, they will leave. So he says nothing. He just stands there with his arm and letter extended.
I reach out and between my first and second fingers, grab it.
He bows and walks out. And as he's walking out, another one walks in, and he extends to you a letter.
grab it out of his hand, put it down on top of this third one.
And as he goes to open the door to leave, he lets a line of these black robe figures walk in, and the first one extends out this letter. And as you take it, he bows and turns to leave, and the next one steps forward to hand you another letter. And this goes on and on and on.
After the fourth one, I'll take it, pop out a nail, tear it open, pull out the letter.
And it says, "Come see me, Uther."
I throw it down on top of the stack, take the next one's letter, pop it open, blow it, pull out the letter.
"You have been summoned, Uther."
And I'll continue doing this until the pile starts to be at my feet as I'm not even tossing it to the side. I'm just dropping them.
And in one way, shape, or form, never worded the same way, but the message is always very clear. You are being summoned by Uther.
I leave all the letters and walk toward Uther.
So you head towards the elevator then?
Mm-hmm.
And as you do, as you walk out, back out of the room after taking all of these letters and the pile and all of that, when you walk back out, you don't see anybody around. None of the pages, none of the other people who tend to be in this area who maybe are on deck for a drill yard run. No one's around. You have a straight shot to not be bothered to the elevator. So you get in the elevator?
Yep.
You get in the elevator and you go down. And it opens up, and in the room, you see Argos, the little dragon, in the little bird cage type home with the door wide open. He can come and go as he pleases. You see the bright green light at the back of the room that you know is the milestone. And you see the chair. And he turns around in the chair. And it's Uther. And he's sitting there. Kind of looks at you. "What are you doing here?"
I'm reporting for a summons.
"Ah, yes." And he reaches behind the desk and pulls out a letter. And he says, and he extends his hand out with the letter in it.
An eyebrow raised.
And he turns back around.
And at this point, annoyed with how many I've had to open, I just drop them on his floor. Or drop the envelope on his floor, unfold the letter.
And on it, you have a location in on the outside of the fort. You're familiar with this place. It's where all of the pages stay. Make an insight roll.
Natural 1.
Your immediate thought is you're being removed from adventuring, from heroes.
Cool. Okay. Then I say to him, if I'm losing my job, why don't you just tell me here?
He
I know
turns.
something's wrong with me,
He turns halfway around and he looks at you.
but I still have value. I could keep being a page. I don't have to go out anymore.
And as you're sitting here talking to him, he just looks at you. He never even looks like he's about to say anything. He just looks at you. And he turns back away.
Fine. I'll go pack my things. Drop that letter. Turn around and walk off.
Where are you going?
Stairs. If I'm gotta leave, I'm going to go the long way.
So the stairs stop at a couple of different levels. The fastest way would be to exit. You would go up 2 floors and out the side of the guild.
Sounds good.
Okay. So you get out there, and it's not like it's the stables and the pages sleep and anything like that. It's a nice addition that was built on specifically for the pages. That kind of made sense to keep you guys out of the way, but close by because your services are needed. And you walk in and kind of take your first step, maybe for the last time, in here, and it's just you.
I go over to my bunk. Start taking my stuff off the shelves. Small little bells, tassels, ball of twine, knickknacks and keepsakes. Throw them all onto the bed. Go to the end of the bed, open up the trunk, throw my cloak onto the bed, throw my sack onto the bed, continue just my extra sets of clothes, and there's that damned blade, that hooked blade, that talon, and I pick it up, and hold it, and I look at it. And I take it and shove it into my hand, and it tears the bandage. Nothing happens. Do it again. Do it again, just hoping something will happen. If you'll just work again. And I drop to my knees right there beside my open trunk. And I just drop the blade and drop my head. And blood is just dripping off of my fingertips onto the ground.
Out of the corner of your eye, you see movement. Slow, deliberate. And then out of the other side, slow, deliberate. You hear footsteps on all sides of you.
Acting on instincts. Even though my falchion is nearby, I stand up, pop out my claws, and prepare for a fight.
And around you, you see dozens of black-robed pages. And they all are just looking at you, hoods up, some of their features ill-defined, some of their features you can't see, hidden. One of them pulls the hood back, revealing a elven woman with tattoos from her forehead to the corners of her mouth, completely bald head. And she just looks at you. Says, "What are you doing?"
I'm packing. Let my claws go.
Says,
Uther doesn't want me anymore.
why do you say that?
When I went to see Uther, from all those damn letters you all gave me, he sent me a letter to come here. And we all know what that means.
Did he say anything when he handed you the letter?
No.
And a couple of the robes further back in the crowd, you can see them kind of jostle a little and lean in, and just outside of your range of hearing, you just whispers. And he says, or she says, that, can you think of anybody who does anything like that?
No.
And she looks at you. Really? And from behind her, a fully black-robed page steps forward wordlessly, holds out a letter.
Is this a game?
The snow.
The snow?
He says, no. And as you tear it open, it's just an envelope. There is no letter. There's nothing inside. And she says, no, it's not a game. And she kind of looks around at the group. We don't know what it is that you're going through. We really haven't been outside the stockade, at least not for very long, and not very often. You have been able to go at a far greater reach than any of us could imagine. You, and she kind of smiles, and as she does, the tattoo of the straight lines on her face bend and warp outside of her eyes. So now the tattoos are going around her eyes versus across them. You are a beacon of hope to many of us who, now that we see that it's possible, merely want to follow in those footsteps. We asked Uther to give you a letter. We didn't think he would. We thought it was, frankly, below him. But it sounds like he came through. And so we needed you to come see us, because you have given us hope. And so we wanted to give you something. And 2 pages who are noticeably shorter come up maybe to her hip, walk around either side, and they hold out, each of them holds out a bag. And it's a little leather sack.
I walk up, bend at the hip, sideways, grab a bag. Untie it.
And when you shake it out into your hand, it jingles, and then it goes ding, 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 and jingles in your hands up against one another. And what you see are two fairly solid yet lightweight balls that are very shiny black material that in your hand as they move jingle.
And then I rotate them in my fingers, watching them move. Hearing the sound, completely focused on this sound. Remembering that. Go ahead.
The thing that jostles you back is the other little one shakes the bag, and you hear jingling inside of it.
I grab the bag.
Two more land in the palm of your hand. And now you notice that between the two from the first bag, there's a little string that essentially ties them together, that it looks like it was bought off the shelf, and this is the string. You can clip it if you want. It's not going to hurt anything, but each one is connected by a string to the other one. And the elf woman we don't know what's going to happen to you out there. But we wanted you to know that there are people that, even if you have a hard time believing that you're a hero just because something's gone, there are a lot of people who still think you're a hero. Please try not to forget that. Now, Gardane, you are... what does Gardane do in his free time? Oh, yeah. You're at the bar. And you're having a nice time. It's just you right now. People have come up to you, and they are, they're buying you a drink every once in a while. They are, the equivalent of wanting to get their picture taken with you. You're the person who is leaving their voicemail, that sort of thing, or outgoing message. You're a little bit of a celebrity here because what you and at this point, you arrived. You guys got back from Horizon maybe 5 days ago at this point. And you are also of the new recruits that have kind of been brought together. You are sort of the longest tenured one, especially out of the heroes that are now kind of going out together between you and Critter and Ulthane and Cajun. You've been around the longest, so you kind of have a certain level of popularity that the others don't. So people come and see you. Well, one day while you're drinking, you're approached by a man in white robes He's got a big tabard across his chest, and it's an image of a tree. And he approaches you, and he kind of nods and says, "Good day, Gardain."
Good day. Sit down. Have a seat.
And he says, "Actually, I would like to see if you would join us at service this morning. We have a special service planned out. We would greatly appreciate it if you would participate."
He'll set his tankard down and you smooth out his beard and he says, "Let's go."
He says, "Yes, let's go." And he takes you out the front gate and around the east side of the stockade, where you've been this way many a time. A river kind of runs up and bends back away from it. And there are these old, very well taken care of docks that are out there. And upon these docks, and these docks are massive, they are huge. They are like cruise ports. So they can handle a lot of weight and a lot of people. But on these docks, there is an enormous building. And this is the church. This is where anybody of faith, whether they be a religious warrior or just a believer, come. And this place is known as the Orthodox. And this river, which is now dried out completely, used to run and waterfall cascade over a bluff that's, a couple thousand feet away. But at the Orthodox, you walk inside, and inside it's this giant stone structure, as to not offend people who perhaps this would be somewhere that maybe even you have seen occasion in the past, because all it is this is just a place where people who have faith come to commune with their God, with nature, with themselves, whatever. And that's the purpose. And this building is large stone block floors, high rising pillars. There's an enormous great hall. As soon as you walk in, looks like one giant room with these pillars on the outer side, this big rug runner right down the middle of the room. And you know that this place has alcoves and little rooms where 4 to 5 people can stand. And in each of these alcoves, there is a representation of the known divines that are out there. When any cleric of any domain can come here to pray to their God, to feel closer, and each one is represented. There is you see a bright starburst etched into the side of a stone. On another, you see simply a thunderbolt. On another, you see a hammer. On another, there is a tree, much like on the man who came to get you, much like on his tabard. And over, all over the place. There are rooms where paladins go, and you can hear some in certain rooms reciting their oaths. And in the center, at the end of this massive great hall, there is a pedestal. And upon this pedestal, there is essentially what is a bowl. And you know that the tradition is to grab or take the icon that represents the people who are having a service, and maybe they're doing more than 4 or 5 people. Maybe there is a big gathering. Maybe there's a wedding, and it's all under like a specific domain of life, of nature. And they want to put that out there because that's the stone, that's the God that they want to get married under, or that's the one that they're devoting their life to. So they're having a specific service. Today, there is the emblazoned hammer on this stone, and what you see lined up as you are led in by this nameless man of the cloth. You have never asked his name, and he has never given his name. He knows you because you're an adventurer, because you are one of the heroes, because you're Gardain. He knows you. But it's a little uncouth for people to ask other people's names. And so this nature cleric ushers you in, and you see standing in front of you is a representative of another domain, another god. Their standing is the arcane domain. There's the life domain, the tempest domain. Every domain, every belief structure is represented, and they're lined up on either side of this red running rug that goes right down the middle of the room and leads to the far side towards your forge domain symbol. And as you kind of walk in, they all look at you, and they all kind of get into a solid stance where their legs are shoulder width apart, and they're all standing there with their hands clasped in front of them and their head down. And out of respect, as you pass by, they all say, Fierno, 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 which you know is your god, is Fierno. And so they're kind of saying Fierno in acknowledgement of today is a big day for you, and so this is about you, so we're going to focus on you. Fierno, Fierno. And you make it all the way to the end, and now you take 2 steps up, and you're standing on a little platform. And the nature cleric turns around, and he extends his arms out, and he says, brothers, we've come here today because someone who would represent faith and loyalty and love, he's a freaking rock star. And you hear the crowd kind of jump up and cheer with their voice, and then quietly it echoes its way back to Fierno, 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 kind of like they're setting themselves. And he turns and he says, Gardain, we think that it's time that you get brought in to the inner circle.
What inner circle?
And he slips this gauntlet off of his hand, and he sets it down to the side, and you see a couple of other ones that are out in the crowd do the same thing, take the gauntlet off and lay it down to the side. It says the inner circle, and he almost says something, and then he thinks about it, and then he almost says something else, and he thinks about it, and he almost says something, and you hear the sound very familiar to you of hot metal being quenched, psst, kind of off in the room to the side of you. And he says, we've been working on something, and for all of us, it is important. And we have found that there's a certain way that when we choose to harmonize, when we work together, we can achieve great things. But more importantly, we can bestow power. We, as you know, we are not the gods. We are not the ones who breathe life into the world. We only hope to shelter it and help it continue but when we work together, we can help others to achieve greater heights than perhaps they could on their own. And you starting to feel a great deal of heat coming out of one of the alcoves to the left side of you.
I'll as it gets, I'll start looking to where I feel the heat at to see what's going on.
Yeah, so what you see is in one of these alcoves, kind of tucked inside the room, but out of the way, is this sort of flickering orange and red light. And the nature cleric puts his hand on your shoulder again, and he says, "You have served Fierno for some time, and he has been good to you. You are an apostle, a light, a torch, and in fact, I believe you have a saying, and all of them collectively say, you are the spark, or you are the ember that sparks the forge," which is kind of like the John 3:16 of Fierno. You are the ember that sparks the forge. And he says, I know we probably don't even need to ask, but which of these best suits you? And in front of you, you see a little starburst. You see a book. And all of these are on a little round stone that have been essentially carved into it so that the raised part is the symbol instead of the carving down deeper into it. So the stone has been carved away, letting the book stand out, letting a flame stand out. You recognize them. It's all of the symbols of all of the gods that are there. You see the hammer of Fierno. You see the tree. You see an eye. You see all of the symbols, and he has them all laid out side by side. He says, I know we probably don't need to ask, but which one are you drawn to?
The forge.
And he kind of nods and ushers away the guy who carried it out. And as he does, he leaves the stone that has a hammer. And it looks, for us, it looks like Mjolnir. You know, it looks like Thor's hammer, sort of. And he says, that's what I thought. We have to ask. You never know. There are people who convert. And as your eyes start to move back towards where this heat is, you turn and you see a guy walking out with these massive, like smelter's gloves on that are covering, and he's got in his a pair of tongs, he's got this burning red ember. It is extremely hot. It is sizzling, and he is walking over towards you guys. And he takes it and he pushes it into the stone. And you can see it kind of bend around the stone. And he pulls it back. And as he does, the cleric says, "Give me your hand."
I'll give him okay.
And as he reaches out for your hand, you see under this gauntleted hand, you see his palm. And in his palm, he has the same tree branded into the palm of his hand. that is on his tabard. He takes your hand and he turns it open. And he says, all right, now say your prayers. And the guy with the tong plunges down onto your hand this hot red rock that burns into your hand, and it stings for just a moment. And as it does, you are sitting there and you're trying to like hold it in and be tough. And all of a sudden you kind of open your eyes and you're standing there looking at your hand. And there is a circled outline, perfect circle in the palm of your hand, glowing bright red, and the hammer in the middle. And you're sitting there looking at it. And as you do, you realize that you are no longer standing at the Orthodox. You are standing at the foot of an enormous throne. And you look up to see this great statue of Fierno. Stone, beautifully cut, masterfully worked. You wish, as a dwarf, you wish this was your statue that you made. Because this is excellent, pristine, awesome, the best. And as you turn to look at it, words appear in the space between where his legs drape over, and it says, "You are the ember that sparks the forge. You are the light that flames the torch." And it lights up in this bright red orange glow. And once more, you are the ember that sparks the forge. You are the light that flames the torch. And then you open your eyes and you realize your hand hurts so bad. It is burning, and you're standing in the middle of the Orthodox around everybody else, and it is just on fire. Your hand hurts so bad, and the other ones are looking at you, and none of them have moved. They're just watching you. And the guy who just branded you, you can see him running back out of the alcove, and he puts down this big bucket of water right in front of you.
And when he does that, I'm sitting there and it hurts. It hurts. But with all these, I refuse. He refuses to let them see a dwarf grimace, and I'll plunge my hand into the water, and it'll bubble and steam like you had just forged a sword. And he'll pull it back, and there'll be his symbol. And he'll look back up at him, and I believe it's done.
And as you hold the palm out so that they can see it, a couple of the clerics that were out in the crowd that took their gauntlet off hold their hand up so that you can see that there's probably 5 or 6 of these guys who have this brand, and each one has the symbol that matches a tabard on their chest. And each one of them, as they hold it up, as you're holding yours up, they all timidly glow just a bit. Yours, which still hurts really bad, starts to hurt a little worse all of a sudden as yours starts to glow a little bit. And you hold it there for just a second, and you kind of loosely close a fist around it, and everybody kind of cheers, and you see another one coming in from the far side. He has a blank tabard on his chest, and he's carrying something on his back, and he walks in, and you can see it's this big barrel, and he gets to the front, and he takes the barrel off and lays it down, and he takes a crowbar and pops the top, and another one comes running in behind him, and you can hear he's kind of clinking, and he stops, and he pulls out like 6 mugs, 3 in each hand, and lays them down, and then 6 more mugs and lays them down, and then 6 more mugs and lays them down. and uh, the nature cleric takes one of the mugs and dives it into this big barrel, and inside you can see it's this ale, and he hands over to you.
I will take it with the unhurt hand, and I will look at him, and I'll like, we gather together at the pinnacle of this crucible. We have been placed in the fire and forged to the divine's will. Raise your cup and let's drink.
And you hear them all kind of cheer, and they all come up and grab a mug, and they're all diving it in and drinking, and everybody's having a good time. And I think we're going to take a $5, and then we will catch up to where you guys actually are in the timeline now. So we will see you guys in 5 minutes. 5 turned into 10, and I'm sorry.
Oh, good. I've probably got maybe an hour.
Cool. I think I'll do a little setting up for the rest of this, and then we'll let everybody get on with their night or day.
Okay.
If everybody is okay with that.
All right.
All right. So at this point, all of the events that we just discussed had happened either before you guys made it back in Cajun's case, or after you returned in the case of Gardane and Critter and Ulthane. And you guys are all sitting around in the feast hall. Essentially, what you guys are doing here is a meeting that is kind of a quarterly review period that Uther likes to kind of have, where he gathers a lot of the heroes, most of the heroes, in fact, together where they feast, and he gives everybody what their outlook and tasks and things like that might be in the future. You guys see a lot of familiar faces around. For the most part, everybody is sectioned into the teams that they regularly work with. But there are some scattered tables of mishmashed heroes that are kind of, they fill in the gaps, or maybe they don't necessarily always work with a single team, that sort of thing. And so you guys are all seated at a section of this long running table that has basically 20 seats on one side and 20 seats on another side, and you're all across from somebody, but it's a big enough table that and it's loud enough in here that it might be a little hard to talk to somebody across the table. So it's really more of talking to the people next to you. And Uther is kind of at the head of the room, and he is seated at a table, and to his right is Bravo, who is completely out of her armor, and she is just in common clothes, and Craig to his left, also just kind of in common clothes. And something that's happened over the 2 months, Craig went out and did a mission and came back, and he actually had he brought back a dog that he's calling Captain. So he's got a dog named Captain, and it was smaller, like sort of a golden retriever mix, or a Labrador mix of some kind. Longer hair, but the captain keeps running back and forth from Craig's table to a little side table that's off in another direction, where you can see some of the younger people are seated. There is a little boy who has these tusks and green skin, and he's a little orc child who is just ripped, young, maybe preteen, and he's seated next to Rosalind, and a handful of other of a younger crowd, and you can see that Captain seems to run over to Craig and look for food, and Craig will give him some food, and then he wants some more, and then he shoos Captain away, and then Captain runs over to Rosalind, and Rosalind gives him some food, and she shoos him away, and then back and forth and back and forth. Around the room, you see the likes of Siren. Sorrow is actually seated elsewhere. A lot of the other faces that you have seen, Roland is on the far side. But it's just full of familiar hero faces. And it kind of gets to a point where the meal is starting to wind down, and they're bringing out the coffee and pie, essentially. And Ulthane kind of gets up and excuses himself. And Gardain, maybe he's had too much to eat, or maybe it's not sitting well. You don't really know, but he kind of excuses himself and heads to his room and expects you to tell him all the details when he gets back. And after he's gone and the chatter and things like that are going on, Uther stands up and he kind of holds his hand out, and everybody sees this and quiets down a little bit. And he gives you guys not a speech, but an impassioned talking to, saying, "Hey, you know, guys, we've done a great job of making a difference in our little corner of the world, and even places that are far beyond where some of you have ever even traveled. And we have faced a lot of great dangers, and we have protected a lot of lives, and we've also made a little bit of money." And you hear one section of one of the far tables kind of cheer out. And he says, "So I think what we should probably do moving forward is to just keep doing what we're doing, because we're doing a great job." And he says, yeah. And he says, "I will be meeting with you individually, team by team, or if you are not associated with the team yet, I will find you or have a page reach out to you, and we can discuss maybe what plans we may have moving forward and any jobs that are lingering on the docket. So everybody, please enjoy your night, and we'll be speaking to you soon. Thank you." And he kind of sits back down and he goes back to eating. What are you guys doing?
So, how y'all been doing?
I'm all right. And you'll notice that in my hand I have two metallic balls that I rotate in my hand, and as they do that, you hear them jingle.
I see you collected a little more accessories.
You could say that.
Well, that's good. I'll pull my glove off. I got branded.
Can you take it off?
No, not without cutting the flesh, and I think it'll stay.
All right.
Turn and look at Cajun. So how you been since the tree incident? Wait, did we know about the tree incident?
Cajun's been fairly quiet, but Krieg probably has said something, especially to you guys, since you're part of the team, or I'm part of your team. Cajun's been fairly quiet, mostly just been investigating his own thoughts. Even now at the dinner table, he's like staring down at whatever he's drinking, just like looking into the water, and it's like he doesn't hear you when you speak, and then he like looks up and he shakes his head and is like, "What?"
Oh, nothing. It'll keep when just catching up, I guess.
Says, "Sorry, I've been lost in my thoughts a lot. Had an experience that I never thought possible." And it's like he's wandering off even as he's speaking, like he's remembering it in front of his eyes. Says, does it hurt?"
It did for a little bit, but I guess anything worth having doesn't come with a little pain.
You're right. What do you think is next for us?
Well, I guess we just keep on with what we're doing, unless we find something else along that's a little off the books to do.
Do you think he has a mission for us?
No. No, I don't think he does.
Well, we could always, I guess we could always just travel around and see what we can do.
Well, I'm certain that what I can do now is quite different from what I could do last we were together.
Really? What do you mean?
I've lost my power.
You can lose your power?
Turns out, yes. I don't know. Ever since we came back from dealing with those bugs,
Those bugs definitely made an impact on the land and on us. I don't think I'll ever be the same again either.
Yeah.
So, what does it mean if you lost your power? Did you gain it back again? Did you gain a different power?
No, I have no power. Nothing new, nothing replaced. Not even a limited version. It's gone.
You think you may have thrown something out of whack when you was fighting the last time?
I don't know. I really don't know. I can still use a sword. So I'll be in some sort of help. I still think I'm little bit faster than the rest of you, but other than that, I'm pretty mundane.
Do you want it back, your power?
Absolutely.
Maybe that's what we could do. Try to get it back for you. I don't know how.
Well, right now, Uther doesn't either. I would prefer not to be a hindrance. Nothing bothers me more than not being able to go as fast as I like. I don't want to be the reason that you're slowed down. I would be happy to fight by your side and use my combat prowess to help, but things are different. And if we come across something that points us in a direction that gives me my power back, that would be good. But trying to find that power, focusing on that, I'm the weak link at that point. I'll help you, but don't do something just on account of me.
Well, if you haven't noticed, I'm slow by nature, so walking speed you're faster than me. So that still puts you a little bit above. That puts you extraordinary in dwarf standards and speed wise. And I don't really have anything else pressing, so I say let's go find what makes the spirit weapons.
Oh,
We can use strength while you are drained in this way.
I've been training, honing my ability with my blade. I think any kind of hope right now, keeping that at the front of my mind, would be a bigger hindrance. If we do come across a lead, I may ask that we follow it. But until then, let's not focus on that. That's a sad ordeal.
All right.
Occasion you feel something kind of bump the back of your chair.
Guess I would slowly spin my head around.
Captain, the dog, is there looking at you.
Cajun hasn't been around pets a lot. He's been around companions. There were rangers in the guild where he came from, so but he sort of looks at the dog and says, Hi, boy.
And his tail wags real fast and he kind of whimpers and sits down, kind of excited.
Look over to Craig. Gesture to the dog.
Craig kind of sees you, and he takes something off of his plate, and then he acts like he throws it down, and then he puts it in his own mouth.
Shrug, and there's a little bit of grated meat still on the plate. Maybe it's mostly gristle. Grab that. Drop it relatively unceremoniously on the ground.
Yeah, before it even lands, Captain has already almost caught it and gets it off the ground and puts it in his mouth and starts shaking his head and throwing it, from side to side, and he just kind of walks off. And you see Uther stands up and he starts kind of making his way on the far side, the first table. He sits down next to him, and they begin to talk for a little while. Gardain, something bumps into the back of your chair.
Oh, I'll look and see what it is.
You see a little man, a halfling, with a well-kept but thin beard that runs just off of his chin. His mustache is shaved and his hair is pulled back into a ponytail. And he has he looks very well groomed, and he's in a nice outfit. And he kind of extends his hand out, and he says, "I don't believe we've met."
Oh, no, we haven't. My name is Gardain Firemantle.
And are you going to shake his
Yeah.
hand?
Yeah.
So you reach out to shake his hand, and you go and you grab, and there's nothing there. And he just kind of he acts like he's shaking your hand. He says, nice to meet you, Gardain. Critter, something bumps into the back of your chair.
What is it?
There is a halfling man with a scraggly beard and mussed hair that hangs over his face so that you can't really make out any details, and he's in kind of ratty clothes. And he says, and he extends his hand. I don't believe we've met.
While still hearing the jingle from the metallic balls. Critter.
And as you go to close your hand around it, the same thing happens. And he acts like he shakes your hand. He says, "Oh, very nice to meet you, Critter." Occasion, something bumps into the back of your chair.
Grab a piece of meat, maybe the last one on the plate, and drop it on the ground without even turning around.
And Captain grabs it, and you can hear him chewing on it again, and he starts to walk off. And then something else knocks on your chair, bumps into your chair.
I sigh, look down.
And you see feet. You see boots that lead to pants that lead up to a short man, a halfling, with a short-cut haircut, with a mustache that hangs over his mouth, otherwise well shaven. in fairly noble clothes. He says, I don't believe we've met. And he extends his hand.
Cajun does the thing with his hand that he's done previously, where he the big black claw over the top of the hand, not shaking it.
And he still acts like he is shaking a regular person's hand. And his hand moves up and down, and it moves through where your hand is, and back down and back up. He says, very nice to meet you. And it's just quiet because you didn't actually tell him your name. And he just looks at you. And now all three of you are now kind of facing behind the table. And you all kind of see it all at once. There are, at every individual that is seated in this room, there is a halfling man with slightly different hair, slightly different facial hair, slightly different dress. And they're all acting like they're shaking a hand, but nobody, like everybody's kind of looking around, almost like they're dealing with the same thing you are.
Oh, good. I was hoping that I wasn't the only one. I was going to say, I think this meat had went bad.
So I'm in the middle of this party, just going to look at my plate and lift it up. I'm going to put my large black paw over it. I'm going to spin it in my hand. And as I look at it, I speak some words into it, and I'm going to cast Dispel Magic in the middle of a tea party.
All right.
And how this looks is suddenly the plate are like erupts with like, I guess, flies that, or something like that. Maybe just flying insects that sort of erupt and flow off the plate and then just sparkle and glitter, sort of spiral up into the lights and just burst out in dust, and the dust sort of settles and dispels magic.
So in the area, there are a handful of floating lights, almost like Christmas lights, but they're all white, illuminating the area because they all hanging from those lights are what look like tiny little flames. And as you cast this, all of those flames go out, and so it's only the torches that are lining the outside of the feast hall here. You also notice the person who is sitting across from you quite a ways. His food has gone from looking like what you ate to looking like it was all like old fish heads. Your food looks fine. His food looks gross. But that's all that happens. There are still many copies. And once all the lights go out, it actually catches Uther's attention, and he stands up and he realizes what's going on all of a sudden. And he looks, and you see Bravo stands up, and she kind of looks around, and she shrugs her shoulders and turns and walks off. And as she does, she's gone for a moment or two, and Uther kind of goes back, and one by one, these halfling images, people, ghosts, illusions, call them whatever you want, one by one, they start to disappear. And Uther has moved. He's talked to the next table and the next table. And now he's talked to the people. You're next. Once he gets done with these people, he's going to come talk to you guys. And he gets done. He gets finished. And he walks over. And he pulls out of the ether a chair and sits down facing you guys. And so you guys turn around and he says, so it's been a pretty good year for you guys.
Except he lost his power.
And Uther kind of, purses his lips together, and he's just kind of looking at the floor. I honestly don't know what to say to that. I know that in this line of work, things can be hard. This isn't something that we deal with very often, so I don't have any immediate resolution. And his eyes kind of drift over towards Critter, and he shrugs his shoulder, and he says, "Are you wanting to leave?"
You know better. Of course not.
Some of the people here are heroes because of the power that they possess, or the gifts that they were born with, or the magic that they've studied or been gifted. Others are here because it is a birthright. Some are out of place. But even though not everybody may have come across it the same way, everybody here is a hero. And at the end of the day, this is the Heroes Guild. This is a setback, of course, but I don't think that it is a hurdle that we cannot overcome.
I agree, but I see this more as knowing the hurdle is coming. Once the actual hurdle gets here, knowing how to jump over it, that'll be the difference that makes.
Critter, the hurdle does not move.
But we do.
And at your own pace.
Just wish I could go faster.
And he kind of looks at Gardain. Says, "Me too." And he kind of smiles, trying to lighten the mood a little bit.
Gardain just shrugs.
Says, so, I've talked to a lot of the other units so far, other teams, and we've got a couple of things that we're cleaning up But we have kind of come to the end of a lot of the available work that we had. So you guys have gained a little reputation in these parts. The people down in West Rock are aware of who you guys are. Of course, the people in this building are proud of what you have become, and I am honored to be able to have you as a part of the team that operates from under this roof. So I have a mission for you. Basically, it's let's just say it's a mission of goodwill. There is a, it's an area that we have not been able to keep in touch with, to have contact with on a regular basis. They have never reached out for assistance from the guild, be it ours or any other, as far as our records show. And I can only imagine that it is because they are just not they're not reaching out to us. It can't be that they don't have problems, because the world has problems. That's the reason that we started this, is because there are problems out there, many of which cannot be handled by people who are not properly trained or skilled or with the knowledge to be able to achieve. And so we go out and sometimes we train them, sometimes we fix the problem, sometimes we get rid of the bad guy, sometimes we solve the mystery. But every time we go out there and we hero our asses off, and we haven't been there. And so what I would like for you guys to do is, of course, you'll be paid the whole time. Because I want you to go down there and kind of spread the word. There is a place, and he pulls out of the back of his cloak. He's got this scroll case, and he caps it and pulls it out and holds it open in front of you guys. And he sits there and he says, "There's a place called the Silver Glade." And as he says it like that, a little arrow appears on the map, and it points at a little section that is kind of on the southeast portion of the continent that you guys are on. It's a long way away. And he tells you that. He says, we're going to get Craig to get you guys there. They actually have the fastest way to get there will be to take one of the Zeppelins that you'll be able to take off, and it'll only take a couple of days to get down there, depending on what the wind's like. Once you get down there, it'll be about a 2-day ride into the Glade, and from there, we just want you guys to go around and be ambassadors. I want you to, at the heart of things, and he kind of looks at you all, at the heart of things, a hero is, when you strip all of the hero and the bells and the whistles away, there's a certain type of person. It takes a certain type of person to be a hero. And I'm not saying you have to be brave. I'm not saying that you have to be fearless. I'm not saying that you have to be a brain. Basically, you need to be an adventurer. You need to seek out the majestic wonders of the world. That is the premise, the base of being a hero. And so all of you are heroes, which means at the base of it, you're all adventurers. And so what I'd like for you to do is I'd like for you to go to the Glade and work your way around. Our most updated information shows that there is a single town. And there's a river there, and once you get down there, it'll make more sense. But the town is called Kane, and start there, and then kind of work your way out. Because if they're having problems, there could be other towns that we're just not privy to. There might be tribes living in the woods that could use some assistance. There may be a little old lady that lives by herself that's getting threatened by a wolf. We don't know. But we would like for you to go out and kind of venture into this unknown territory. And by unknown, of course, I just mean that we haven't really been able to get into it a whole lot. So what do you guys think about that? What are your thoughts?
Do we get to keep the Zeppelin?
That I guess that would probably be between you and the travel agency, because they're the ones who there's two Zeppelins. There's one that flies south, and at the same time the other flies north, and it's constant. So it's sort of like a train, but it floats in the air.
Oh, well, I'm all for riding a Zeppelin. So
yeah. Cajun?
I will go, and I will do what I can for the land and its people.
I particularly think that you will enjoy the trip. Have you ever been to the Glade?
No, I have not. I come from the north, and now I'm heading south.
Well, perhaps next time we'll send you guys on a mission of goodwill to the north. Critter?
I think it would be great to go out to this place and tell the people that even though you may not seem heroic, you can be heroic.
Very good. I think the only matter that is remaining, from what I understand, I believe Craig, as you are aware, sometimes he's a little absent-minded, and sometimes he's also absent. You guys know he went through a little bit of an issue here a while back. And that's a little his fault, a little my fault, but he's returned. The milestone is up and running, good to go. So everything on that front should be good. He's good. But he has failed, and I apologize ahead of time. He has failed to deliver the payment from a couple of the jobs, as well as the payment for the issue with, well, in the woods. Of course, the Funland. So you will each be back paid. And of course, we don't want a situation like this becoming a problem. So we're going to pay you a little bit of interest. And there will be some, I would hope you could talk to, Craig, and see what maybe you might want to do with some of those funds, as far as possibly putting them, investing back in the guild, or going out on your own venture. Of course, it is your money. Do not let us tell you how to spend it. Hell, maybe you're going to buy armor or weapons or food or beer. It's your call. But I will make sure that Craig is made aware, and we will make up for this. So I sure do appreciate all the hard work. Do you guys have any questions for me?
How long is this trip?
Well, of course, the initial plan is I just want you to be thorough. If you feel like you have lived up to the expectations of this quest, then you can come back whenever you're ready. If you find yourself in a situation, please, as always, you will not break any contract or binding agreements if you accept any jobs while you're there. That can only bring better faith. So that is something that, of course, we recommend. And if something comes up where your assistance is needed, I, of course, have the ability, and he intentionally closes his mouth, but in each of your heads, you hear the ability to speak to you.
Well, I guess we're taking a Zeppelin trip.
How soon do you want us to leave?
Well, I think that I suppose whenever your things are in order, um, we'll have to get together with Craig to put together travel arrangements. But I would say within the coming days, obviously, um, now that you know that there is some work in sight, you may want to take it extra easy the next couple of days, and that's fine. Um, but I will be passing on any additional jobs and work to some of the other teams since we're going to make our most popular new recruits, you guys, be sort of our let's see, our advertising adventurers. Yes, that will be you. You will be putting out a good name for us.
All right. I'll do my best. Thanks for sending me out.
And he looks and he's like, okay. And he stands up and the chair kind of disappears underneath him and just kind of into an audible little, and it's gone. And he takes a step and he's like, oh, about the situation that arose just a moment ago. It's I don't want anybody to be worried about anything. That is just Mudbath. I know you guys have maybe not been formally introduced, but he was the our halfling friend who, when the fake Craig stole the milestone, he was released from one of the tanks. And sometimes things happen. They say that you reap what you sow, but that boy's mind is a garden that a lot of people have access to. So fear not. Do not worry. We're heroes, adventurers, and Mudbath is one of us. So be safe. We will talk again here in the next couple of days, and we will let you all go on your adventure. Great. Was a good meeting. Gardain, you're going to tell Ulthane all about this, right?
Of course, in small
All right.
details.
Yes. Very good. Well, thank you, and I will let you get on with your evening. And he walks and he goes a couple of seats down, and he pops out the chair and sits down the same way with you guys, and he starts talking to this other group.
Very good.
This is going to be interesting. I'm going to enjoy getting away from here.
I've learned much about myself and about my companions. It'll be interesting to learn more.
And there's Zeppelin.
All right.
Well, very good. So I think that we'll probably, I know it's a little earlier than usual, but we got started a little earlier than usual. I feel like this was a good setup, and we can probably end here. The last thing that happens is you see in the middle of this dreary, fog-covered swamp an entrance to a little shanty shack forged from twigs, trees, mud holding it together. And it's dark inside and it's dark outside, but there is a light emanating from the inside. And it is a pale light that barely is giving off any sort of, I don't know, brilliance. It just seems like this dull light that's up against a dark room with a tattered together floor, mostly leaves and mud, water coming through at certain places. There's a figure, and it's standing in the corner, and it's big, burly, and you hear it. Well, I don't know. I mean, would they ever? They'll never find us down here. And then you hear the rattling of a chain, and the head on this big burly figure kind of gets pulled back as the chain gets pulled tight. And it pans over, and you see the light shine up on this fang-toothed fuzzball of a head, fur. It says, "Dear sister, I just think we've been running too long. Maybe we should go find them." And so that's where we'll end. I appreciate it. Everybody that plays, it's fun. I thought tonight was fun. I hope nobody got out a bunch of dice because I feel like I didn't do much there, but we are kind of setting up for a little bit different expectations here, hopefully. But we'll have a little bit of fun on the next one too. I haven't looked at the thing. Let's see here. So 2 weeks from today is the 20th. If everybody would be available, that's when we would attempt to play again. For those in America, that is 4 days before Thanksgiving, 3 days before. Jim, are you going to be out of town? Okay. So yeah. Jim will be out of town. So then my expectation would be the 27th, which would be the following Monday.
Well, y'all can play without me.
Okay. Well, we'll talk about it. That's going to be a hectic week for me. I work retail, so we'll see. It might give me more time to make things a little bit more fleshed out if we hold it. But I will be in touch with everybody, so letting them know what we're planning on doing. Very good. Anybody that watches, thank you for watching. And guys, thanks for playing. I appreciate the truth here. I appreciate all the imagery and stuff like that you guys kind of add to the situation, because that really gives me a more fleshed out feel for everything that we do or is to come or anything like that. So I appreciate it.
Thank you for running us. It's been fun.
Oh yeah.
Very good. Well, till next time, I appreciate it.
All right. See you next time.